My family said they were broke. Then I caught them flying first class without me, so I let everything burn in. Growing up, I always knew where I stood in my family. Not in the spotlight, not even in the shadows, just somewhere in the silent, unnoticed in between. My sister Monica was the bright light in every room, the first to be praised, the last to be blamed, the one whose smallest efforts were celebrated like triumphs, while my quiet consistency was treated like background noise. My parents, Sharon and Kenneth, were Southern-born, sweet tea-drinking, tradition-loving people who valued two things above all else: image and loyalty, though loyalty always seemed to mean me showing up with my wallet open. I'm Wesley, by the way, 36 years old, single, living in Knoxville, working as a systems analyst for a mid-sized logistics firm. I've been financially stable for a while, not rich, not extravagant, just good at planning and careful with what I spend. No kids, no wife, and until recently, no vacations that didn't involve someone else's emergency. My life ran on two tracks: what I planned for myself and what I gave up because someone else needed saving again. It started slowly, years ago, like a slow drip from a faucet you didn't notice at first. Wes, do you mind covering the electric bill just this once? We're running a little tight after car repairs. My mom asked me after I landed my first full-time gig out of college. I paid it happily. I mean, they were my parents, right? And then it was Monica. Darren's insurance won't cover Emery's braces, and we're stretched with dance camp and the roof repairs. I hate asking, but you're the only one doing okay right now. That was how it always came. Drenched in guilt, wrapped in obligation, presented like some noble call to duty that only I seemed to hear. It wasn't just the big things. It was little things, too. School uniforms, soccer fees, random bills, until payday. And every time I helped, someone would say the same damn line. You're lucky, Wes. You've got freedom. No kids, no real responsibilities, just you. Monica's got a whole family to worry about. Apparently being responsible, staying out of debt, and saying no to chaos made me the golden piggy bank. And I told myself I was okay with it. I repeated the lie like a prayer. It's family. It's just money. I'll take my trip next year. That trip, Lisbon, Portugal, was more than just a vacation in my mind. It was something I'd been dreaming about since I was 19 and saw it in a film. Sunlight on ancient stone, coffee on a balcony, something real that wasn't someone else's problem to fix. I saved slowly, quietly, stashing away what I could, even while half of my paychecks were still bleeding into other people's lives. Then, finally, last spring, I booked it. 6 nights, my own itinerary, my own money. No one knew. I didn't tell my parents, didn't tell Monica, didn't leave breadcrumbs to guilt me out of it. I packed my bag, took a cab to the airport, and stood in the economy boarding line grinning like an idiot, practically vibrating from the inside out. And then I heard her, Monica, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. Emery, put the backpack down, honey. The seats are huge. You won't need half that. I turned my head, stomach already tightening, and there they were. My entire family. Monica, her husband, their 2 kids in matching pastel tracksuits, and our parents. All of them lined up in priority boarding, laughing, tan, casual, as if this was just another day. The kids were dancing in place, hyped beyond belief, and my dad wore a Hawaiian shirt like a walking cliché. First class. They were flying first class to Martinique, a damn luxury cruise I hadn't heard a single word about. And me? I was 20 feet away, dressed for red-eye survival, ticket in hand, watching them step into something they never even thought to include me in. For a second, I tried to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was a last-minute deal. Maybe they won a contest. Maybe Monica got a bonus. But then my mother laughed. I remember the way she said it, voice low but amused. I still feel a little bad we didn't take Wes with us. Monica snorted and rolled her eyes. He wouldn't have fit in anyway. Those 7 words. They rearranged something permanent in me. I didn't say a thing. I turned away like I hadn't heard, boarded my flight when my row was called, sat in my cramped seat, and stared out the window with my jaw clenched so tightly I gave myself a headache. They never even knew I saw them. And I didn't text. I didn't call. I didn't check in from Lisbon or send a postcard. I just let the silence breathe for once in my life, and it felt like drinking air for the first time. And Lisbon? It was everything I wanted it to be. Cobblestone streets, old bookstores, coffee that tasted like burnt sugar, and midnight, all mine. I ate slow dinners under streetlights, wandered through palaces, spent entire hours doing nothing but watching strangers live their lives. And still, every night on my hotel balcony, with the city stretching out around me, I replayed that moment at the gate. He wouldn't have fit in, like I was some loose thread they had to snip to keep the fabric clean. I came home a week later, sun-kissed and changed. I walked into my apartment and unpacked in silence. And less than 24 hours later, my mother called. She was cheerful, too cheerful. "Sweetheart, how was your trip? We missed you." I said it was good. She asked if I could help with groceries this month, just a little short. I let the quiet grow teeth between us, and then said it. "Like the ones you picked up after getting back from first class?" There was silence on the other end. Then the nervous laugh. "Wes, that was different. We had airline miles and Monica found a deal." "Just stop," I said. Not angry, not shouting. Just done. That was the moment everything tilted. After that phone call, I didn't respond to a single message for 2 full weeks. Not from my mother, not from my dad, and definitely not from Monica. For the first time in my adult life, I let everyone sit with the silence I had always filled on their behalf. No check-ins, no money transfers, no reminder that I existed just to make their lives more comfortable. It was like putting down a 100-pound weight I hadn't realized I'd been dragging behind me for years. And I started to notice something strange. The world didn't fall apart without me. But my family sure started acting like it would. It began with the usual passive-aggressive guilt trips. Texts from my mom saying things like, "We're family, Wesley. Don't let something small get in the way of everything we've built." Built? I wanted to text back. What exactly did we build? Because from where I was standing, it looked like they built a house with Monica's name on the deed and just used my paycheck to keep the lights on. A few days later, Monica finally snapped. She called, no warning, and launched into a full-blown meltdown before I could even say hello. "Are you serious with this, Wes? You're actually mad about a trip? Grow up already." I let her vent for a while, listened to her scream about how I was punishing the whole family because of some airport misunderstanding. Then I said something I never thought I'd say to her. "I'm not punishing anyone. I'm just done being useful only when your life goes sideways." That caught her off guard. I could hear it in her breath, the way it caught in her throat like she hadn't expected pushback. "Come on, Wes," she said, her voice shifting into the version she used when she wanted something. A little softer, a little sweeter, just fake enough to make my skin crawl. "You know how hard things are for us. You don't have kids, you don't have a mortgage. It's different for you, right?" I said. "And yet, I'm the one who paid for Emery's math camp last month. And last year, I was the one who covered your car repairs when Darren's credit cards were maxed out. And don't forget the 3 months of childcare I chipped in for when you both started working weekends." I could hear her fuming through the phone. "You've always helped," she said like it was a character flaw. "You always do." "Well," I said, "not anymore." She didn't know how to handle that. She laughed, bitter and loud. "You are unbelievable. Selfish little prick. After everything we've done for you." I didn't say goodbye. I didn't explain. I just hung up and stared at the screen for a long time, watching her name disappear from the call log like it meant nothing at all. The next morning, my phone was flooded. My mom left 3 voicemails, each one a perfect little performance. "Wesley, honey, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this isn't how we treat family." My dad chimed in later. "This isn't right, son. Your sister and the kids need your help. Be reasonable." Monica texted twice. "So now you think you're better than all of us? And guess we know where your priorities are now." But I didn't respond. I got up, made coffee, sat on my couch, and listened to nothing for an hour. No phone ringing. No one asking for something. No one expecting me to drop everything and come running. That silence, it was the loudest peace I'd ever felt in my life. And I let it in. By noon, the tone of the messages started to shift. No more guilt, just panic. One voicemail from my mother stood out. "Wesley, please, we have a problem. It's the house." I rolled my eyes. Of course it was. Another crisis I was expected to fix. Another mess I hadn't made, waiting for my checkbook to show up like a savior. I ignored the first call, then the second, but by the third I picked up, maybe out of habit, maybe out of curiosity, maybe because I still hadn't completely shed that part of myself that thought maybe, just maybe, they'd finally be honest with me. What now? I asked the second she answered. She sighed like she'd been carrying the weight of the world, which was rich considering I was the one who always carried hers. Wesley, she said, drawing out my name like it meant something sacred. Your father and I, things have been tight. We didn't want to worry you, but we're behind on the mortgage. Of course they were. And you're just telling me this now? I asked. We didn't want to burden you, she insisted, the irony apparently lost on her. But we're in real trouble now. Just this 1 month, Wesley. Just to keep things stable. I leaned back in my chair and looked around my apartment, thinking about the espresso machine I'd almost bought last week, but decided against because I assumed I'd be wiring someone else rent money instead. Kind of funny, I said. How you could afford priority boarding, but not your mortgage. She went quiet. Then she exhaled hard. It wasn't like that, she whispered. It was exactly like that, I said. You didn't think twice about spending on Monica's kids, on your cruise, on your little matching outfits. But when it comes to keeping your roof from caving in, suddenly there's no money left. You don't understand, she snapped. You don't have a family. You don't have mouths to feed. I smiled coldly into the phone. Exactly, I said. Because I've been feeding yours for years. That was the first time I said it out loud. And it felt better than I thought it would. Her voice broke for a second. We need you, she said finally, and I knew she was telling the truth. Not because they loved me. Not because they respected me. But because without me, the foundation they'd built their comfort on was cracking under its own weight. I know, I said. But you'll have to figure it out without me this time. Then I hung up. And this time, I didn't feel guilty at all. 3 days passed before the next door knock came, loud and fast, like someone trying to wake up the whole apartment complex. I didn't even check the peephole. I already knew who it was before I opened the door. Monica stormed past me without a word, tossed her purse onto my counter like she owned the place, and spun around with a glare that could cut glass. What the hell is wrong with you? She hissed, like I'd committed some war crime by saying no for the first time in my life. I closed the door slowly and leaned against it, arms crossed, too calm for her liking. Nice to see you too, I said. She ignored it. Mom's been crying for 2 days, Dad's stomping around like a lunatic, and I've had to cancel our weekend plans because they're freaking out about the house. And why? Because you're throwing a damn tantrum. I tilted my head and stared at her for a moment before I said anything. You mean because I'm not bailing you out again? She scoffed, folded her arms, and paced my living room like it offended her. You know they need help. You're just punishing them because your feelings got hurt over a vacation. That one made me laugh. I didn't want to, but it slipped out anyway. Is that what you think this is about? Hurt feelings over a vacation you didn't even tell me about? She rolled her eyes dramatically. Oh, come on, Wes. It was one trip. You're being dramatic. No, I said. I'm being honest. For the first time in decades. She made a face. This isn't about the trip. It's about the fact that I've been supporting this family for years. Bills, childcare, school supplies, car repairs, groceries, dance lessons, without ever being included, thanked, or even acknowledged. I was good enough to send money, but not good enough to sit in first class. Her mouth opened like she was about to argue, but no words came out. I kept going. When was the last time Mom called me just to say hi, without needing something? When was the last time Dad asked how I was doing, not what I could cover? Do you even know what I like to do on weekends, Monica? Do you know anything about me that isn't your financial convenience? She looked away, lips pressed tight, trying to find some way to flip the guilt back in her favor. That's not fair, she muttered. You've always been independent. You never needed anything. That's the lie you all told yourselves, I said. So you wouldn't feel guilty for using me. She grabbed her purse without another word. Do whatever you want, she snapped. But don't come crying back when you realize how much you've thrown away. I smiled, opened the door for her, and said, I won't. Trust me. She slammed it on her way out. The next day I got a text from my dad. Just one line. Dinner on Sunday. We need to talk. It wasn't a request. It was a command wrapped in casual punctuation. I didn't even bother pretending to consider it. I texted back, I'm busy. A minute later, my phone rang. Of course it did. I answered more out of curiosity than anything. Daniel, he started, already irritated. Enough is enough. You're acting like a child. Am I? I said. Because for once I'm acting like someone who understands what boundaries look like. He exhaled sharply like I'd personally insulted his pride. You're making this harder than it needs to be. We're family. Families don't abandon each other. I couldn't stop the laugh that came out. You mean like how you abandoned me at the airport? That kind of family. There was a long pause, long enough for me to hear the hum of his old air conditioning unit through the speaker. That's not what happened, he finally muttered. We didn't mean it like that. Maybe, I said. But you didn't mean it the other way either. You didn't mean to include me. You didn't mean to invite me. You didn't even mean to think of me. He didn't respond, so I kept going. You only call when you need something. And when I stop answering, suddenly I'm the bad guy. That's not family. That's a damn business transaction with no return. He finally dropped the pride mask. Look, he said, voice softening. Your mother's upset. She wants things to go back to how they were. I nodded to myself. So do I. But that version of how they were means me being treated like a bottomless checking account, and I'm done with that. Silence again. Then, I don't know what you want from us, Wesley. I smiled at nothing. Exactly. I don't want anything anymore. A few days passed. The phone stayed quiet. I thought maybe the silence meant they'd finally heard me. I should have known better. The desperation stage was next. One night, while I was brushing my teeth, I saw a message light up from Monica. Hope you're happy. Mom and Dad are drowning because of you. I didn't reply. A few minutes later, another one came. You know they're behind 2 months, right? Bank's already sending letters. I let it sit. Then I replied. Didn't seem to matter when you were buying first-class seats. She fired back instantly. Oh my God, let it go. That was one time. I stared at the screen for a long second and typed. It was the one time I saw the truth. That was the end of that thread. She didn't write back. The next morning my mother called again. I answered this time, only because I was curious how far this would go. Her voice was already shaky. Wesley, it's bad. The bank is threatening foreclosure. Please, honey, we need you. I said nothing. Just let her sit in it. She kept going, desperate. I know things have been tense, but we're your parents. This is serious. Just help us this one last time. The phrase hit like a trigger. One last time. The same phrase they used the first time they asked me for anything, back when I was 23 and still naive enough to think that family loyalty was a form of love. No, I said. Wesley, no. I said again, firmer. You made your choices. Now you live with them. She shifted gears in record time. You're being selfish, she snapped. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. I laughed, low and sharp. Name one thing. One thing in the last 5 years you've done for me that didn't involve asking for money. Nothing. Not a single word. Good luck, I said, and hung up. The fallout didn't hit like a lightning strike. It was more like watching a slow, steady landslide, each piece slipping after the next until the whole mountain gave way. I didn't have to ask what was happening behind the scenes. The silence told me everything. Monica stopped texting. My mother stopped leaving voicemails. Even my father, usually the first one to double down on his lectures, went quiet. But I knew they weren't done. They were just regrouping, circling the wagons, waiting to see how long they could last without me. A week passed, then 2, and then I finally heard the news. Not from them, of course, but through a mutual acquaintance who used to work with Monica's husband. Turns out she had finally done the unthinkable, dipped into her savings. Her husband Darren hadn't even known how much her family had been relying on me until the bills started rolling in with no one there to catch them. The tension cracked something between them, and now even their perfect little marriage was showing teeth. I heard they'd canceled a vacation, pulled the kids out of gymnastics, and were arguing about whether to downsize their home. For once, someone else was scrambling. And my parents? They were finally learning what it felt like to need help and find none. I didn't cheer for their downfall, not really. It wasn't about revenge. It was just the first time in my life I watched them deal with the mess they'd made. No lifeline, no guilt leverage, no backup plan in the shape of their invisible son. I sat on my couch every night, sipping espresso I finally allowed myself to buy, and stared at the ceiling, breathing in the freedom like it was oxygen. Then came the inevitable visit. I was watching an old documentary on my laptop when I heard the knock. Not desperate this time, not frantic, just slow and deliberate. I waited a few seconds before answering, half hoping it was a neighbor or a delivery driver, even though I knew better. Monica stood on the other side of the door wearing the exact expression I expected, tight-lipped, eyes rimmed with exhaustion, fake calm layered over thinly veiled panic. "We need to talk," she said, already pushing past me. I didn't stop her. I wanted to see where this would go. She walked straight to the kitchen, placed her bag on the table like she lived there, and spun around. "They're going to lose the house, Wes. This isn't just about pride anymore." I leaned against the doorway and folded my arms. They should have thought about that before they dropped $5,000 on a vacation I didn't know existed. She rolled her eyes like I was a child still clinging to a scraped knee. For God's sake, it was one trip. It was the moment I saw exactly where I stood. I cut in. She paused, just for a second, but it was enough. "You think this is easy for me?" she asked, voice rising. "You think I enjoy being the one holding this all together now?" I raised an eyebrow. "Welcome to my world." She ignored that. "Darren and I are fighting. The kids don't understand what's going on. Mom's crying every day. And you're just sitting here with your coffee machine like you're finally free." I didn't answer, because she was right. I was. She kept going, her voice shaking with frustration. "You could fix this in 5 minutes, Wes. You always have. That's what you do. That's what you've always done." "Exactly," I said. "That's what I've always done. And you never once asked what it cost me to do it." Her face twisted. "You're punishing all of us for something we didn't mean." "You meant it," I said. "Or you didn't care enough not to." That shut her up for a minute. I walked past her, opened the fridge, and grabbed a drink. "Why now, Monica? Why is it suddenly my job to save everyone again when I never got a seat at the table in the first place?" She stared at me, breathing heavily. "Because no one else can," she finally said. And there it was. Not a plea. A declaration. I was the last option. The final fallback. The reliable backup generator the family left to rust until the lights went out. "That's not my problem anymore," I said, calm as ever. She looked at me with something close to disbelief, like she still thought this was a bluff I'd eventually walk back. "So that's it," she said. "You're just done?" I nodded. "Completely." She grabbed her bag and stormed toward the door. "You think this makes you strong, Wes? All it makes you is heartless." I smiled faintly. Better than spineless. She slammed the door hard enough to shake the wall. A few days later, another text from my dad arrived. "You win. Hope you're proud." I deleted it without reading the rest. It was always the same script. Guilt, anger, denial, repeat. I thought that might be the end of it. But then, on a rainy Wednesday evening, I got a message from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Kelly, one of Monica's old friends. We were never close, just knew each other through family barbecues and forced holiday get-togethers. Her message was short but loaded. "Hey Wes, I know it's weird to reach out, but I thought you should know. Things are really bad over there." I stared at my phone. "Why are you telling me this?" I wrote. Her reply came fast. "Because I've seen how much you've done, and I've seen what they say when you're not around." That last part made my chest tighten. A few minutes later, she sent screenshots. Messages from a private group Monica was in with her close friends. There it was in black and white. "Wes is a selfish bastard. He's watching us suffer like we deserve it. I had to empty my savings because he finally decided he's too good for his family." Another said, "We can't do this much longer. Darren's losing it. I swear to God, if Wes doesn't come crawling back soon." I laughed out loud, sharp and bitter. Crawling back. That's what they thought. That I'd miss being needed so badly I'd eventually show up again, checkbook in hand, like nothing ever happened. They hadn't learned anything. They hadn't changed. They were just mad their golden goose flew off and locked the damn barn behind him. And just when I thought it couldn't get more predictable, the phone rang again. Unknown number. I let it ring once, twice, then curiosity got the better of me. "Hello, Wesley." My stomach dropped. It was my dad. I hadn't heard his voice in nearly a month. "What do you want?" I asked flatly. He sighed, the kind of sigh that tried to sound like patience but carried years of disdain beneath it. "We need to talk." "No, we don't." He didn't like that. "Enough is enough," he snapped. "This is getting ridiculous. You've made your point." I couldn't help the smirk. "Oh, have I? Funny how quiet it gets when I stop being useful." He lowered his voice like it made him sound wise. "You're abandoning your family over a stupid vacation?" And there it was, the anchor. The thing they always dragged back to when all else failed. "This isn't about the vacation," I said slowly. "It's about years of being taken for granted, ignored, used, and discarded until someone needed a handout again." He stayed silent. So I pushed. "You could have invited me. You could have said thank you. You could have treated me like a son instead of a sponsor. We can fix this," he said eventually. "We can go back to how it was." "That's the problem," I said. "How it was wasn't working for me." He paused, long enough that I thought he'd hang up. Then he said something that should have hurt, but didn't. "Sarah's struggling. Mark wants to sell the house. The kids are confused. They don't understand why their uncle won't help." "Not my problem," I said, and meant it. "Be reasonable," he said. "I am," I replied. For the first time in my life. The call ended like they always do, abrupt, bitter, unfinished. But this time, I didn't care, because I was done finishing things they broke. That was the last time I heard my father's voice. I didn't expect some dramatic conclusion or teary apology, because people like him don't admit they were wrong. They just get quieter when they run out of angles to manipulate. What surprised me most wasn't his silence, but how little I missed the noise. I thought the absence would leave a hole, that I'd feel the distance like some permanent echo in my chest, but instead, it felt like space. Finally, space for me to just breathe without bracing for another ask. Monica didn't call again, either. After her last round of texts where she called me selfish, cold, and emotionally stunted, she went radio silent. I assumed it wasn't out of respect, but out of defeat. She had lost control, and more than that, she had finally been forced to become the fallback. There was no West to call, no one to patch the leaks, no extra account to drain. A month later, I heard through someone else, some distant cousin who always overshares, that she and Darren sold the house. Too much pressure, too many bills, and not enough emergency funds left after bailing out our parents. They moved into a modest 2-bedroom rental in the suburbs. No more designer furniture or expensive birthday parties for the kids. Just reality, wrapped in a smaller mortgage and a bitter aftertaste. As for Sharon and Kenneth, they did what they swore they'd never do. Sold the family home and moved into a duplex across town. The house I grew up in, the one I'd helped maintain more times than I could count, was gone. I didn't even know until it was already sold. I guess they didn't want to risk asking me to help with closing costs. When I saw the real estate photos online, empty rooms, staged furniture, all the memories stripped clean and replaced with beige, I didn't feel sad. I felt detached, like I was looking at a life that never really included me to begin with. And me? I was fine. Actually, I was better than fine. With no more requests draining my income, I finally got to live. I upgraded my apartment, not a mansion, but a space that felt like mine, where every corner reflected what I liked instead of what I could afford after helping someone else. I bought new furniture, replaced the coffee table I'd been dragging from apartment to apartment for 10 years, and installed bookshelves I actually had time to fill. I bought the espresso machine I had put off for 3 years. Every morning I'd brew my coffee in silence. No guilt, no urgent calls, no one asking me to check my account balance for their mistake. And I traveled again. This time to Kyoto, somewhere I'd dreamed of visiting since I was a teenager watching documentaries at 2 in the morning. I stood in front of ancient temples, walked through quiet streets lined with cherry blossoms, and didn't think about anyone but myself. I posted one photo, just one, of me standing on a wooden bridge under a full moon. No caption, no explanation, no comments allowed. That photo felt more honest than any family picture I'd ever posed for. There was peace in not being needed. Not the performative peace they used to sell me on. You're so lucky you don't have kids. You've got the freedom we envy, but real peace. The kind you earn after carrying too much and finally deciding to let it fall. I didn't expect forgiveness to come. I didn't want it. I didn't expect gratitude to show up either. That was never their way. But what I didn't expect was the clarity, the absolute certainty that I had made the right choice. Then, because of course nothing stays quiet forever, I got the message. Not from my parents. Not from Monica. But from Melody, a woman I had started seeing occasionally after coming back from Japan. She worked at a bookstore downtown, always wore too many rings, and asked questions like they were secrets. One night over drinks, she said, "You got another tag today," and passed me her phone. It was a photo, posted by one of Monica's old friends. Caption: "Tough times don't last, but tough people do. Hang in there, Monica." The photo told the story, the words didn't. Monica's smile was tight. Darren's face looked hollow, and the light in their eyes was long gone. No more curated family perfection. Just two people unraveling in front of a lens they no longer controlled. Curious, I clicked through to her page. No family photos. No holiday spreads. No beach shots or birthday parties. Just silence. For a woman who lived online, that was louder than any post. A week later, another message. This one from Kelly again. "I know you're probably over all of this," she wrote, "but I thought you'd want to see this." It was a screenshot from a group chat. Monica had posted it. "Wes is a fool. He thinks he's free now. But one day he's going to need us, and we won't be there." Then another line. "We deserved his help. He owed us. I swear to God, if he doesn't come crawling back, I don't know what we're going to do." That part made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was still so revealing. Even now, she couldn't let go of the idea that I existed to serve a function. That all this time, I wasn't a brother or a son. I was an account balance, a resource, a crutch. And now that they were limping alone, it was my betrayal they blamed, not their own dependency. The last time my name came up in their orbit was through another family whisper. A cousin who'd gone to visit my parents said my mother kept a framed photo of the old house on her new fireplace. Like it was a dead child, she could still guilt into returning. She apparently tells people they just wish Wes would come home for Christmas again. Like I moved to another continent instead of just stepping out of their grip. I didn't go home for the holidays. I didn't call. I didn't send a card. I didn't unblock anyone. Instead, I booked a cabin up in the mountains, brought a bag full of books, and spent a week making fires, eating good food, and sitting in silence so thick you could feel it settle into your bones. That was the moment I knew it was over, not in a bitter, final kind of way, but in the quiet certainty that comes when you stop waiting for something that never arrives. I wasn't angry anymore. That had burned off somewhere between the airport and the realization that they never really saw me as more than a solution. I wasn't hurt anymore either. Hurt needs hope to survive, and I had finally run out of it. What I was now was free. Free from being the support beam for a house built without me in mind. Free from guilt masked as love and love masked as obligation. Free from the myth that being needed is the same as being wanted. They didn't earn my forgiveness. They didn't deserve my return. And they sure as hell didn't get my silence as permission to try again. So I blocked the last numbers, archived the messages, and lived my life forward instead of tethered to a family who only looked back. I didn't know them my success. I didn't know them my money. And I didn't know them my name in their mouths like a prayer they never meant. I only owed myself this: peace, boundaries, and a future they could no longer touch.